Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Afi and I'm back with another video. I was going to do a get ready with me today, but I'm just trying to go makeup free for a while because I think that I'm getting an infection in my eye, but I'm not sure. So I'm just going to give it time and we'll see how it progresses. So for today, as you can tell by the title, the video is going to be, I guess I said as I'm planning it, I'm saying content corner, so just stuff that I'm recommending to you guys to read, watch, stuff like that. I want this video to be short and sweet because it's kind of like a filler video because I have a really good video coming up, but I also want to talk about this. So I was like, let me just do it. And then, yeah, I hope you enjoy it. So I'm going to talk about one movie that I watched recently that just has stayed with me. Like, I watched it, I think it could have been a month ago. And until today, I'm still thinking about it. Yesterday, I was talking and I was saying, like, oh, yeah, what if, like, creating a scenario based on that movie? So it really stuck by me. So I was like, definitely want to talk about it. Actually, it's a series, not a movie. And then I have two books that I want to talk about. There's one other book that I want, but I don't have it here. And I like to do book recommendations if I have the book physically. So I'm going to do that one in another video later on. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about two books and one series. First recommendation, a series called One Day is on Netflix. This series was released very recently, actually. I think it's a very recent release. And I watched it in the middle of the hype, but I think I was like at the tail end of the hype, something like that. So I wasn't sure what to expect. I just kept seeing people posting like, oh yeah, cried throughout. Oh, I don't know what. Like it was just stuff like that. And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. We'll see. So then I watched it and I want to read, I guess, just like the explanation that is everywhere. And then I think I'll go into why I liked it, the themes that the movie brought up, and then yeah, we'll just go from there. So first of all, it's a series based on a book. The book is called One Day by David Nichols. And so I'm going to read, I guess I'll read the blurb, which says, after spending graduation night together, Emma and Dexter go their separate ways, but their lives remain intertwined. It's based on David Nichols' novel. And I feel like when you see that, when you like read that blurb, you're like, okay, that sounds like it could be harmless, right? Like you're just like, yeah, that's interesting. This book really just like I say book, but it's not even a book. I want to mention first of all, I like yeah, it's actually 24 release. I like movies and like series that are based on books because I think I am a lover of books. I think we know that I have multiple videos about books on this channel. And if you follow me on Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that, you will see I just like I'm constantly talking about books. So because of that, I just feel like if a movie or a series is based on a book, then it should be a hit. Like there's nothing else to it. It's like the story is well defined. Authors take so much time to like create the story. Because it's not like a quick 2 hour thing. It's like you need something that's going to stay in people's minds forever. So that's of course not the case for everything because there's another book that I read and the movie I watched the movie and I was just like, oh my gosh, absolutely not. Like I didn't like either of them. I didn't like the book, I didn't like the movie. They were just and it was based on a true story. So it's just like, do you not like people? Anyway, yeah, so this series specifically is is set in the 1950s. I think it starts in like 1950s or 1970s. It's something like that. It's not current day. Let's say that. It's not like setting in current day. And so different things will come up, but the story is about these two people, as the blurb has said. They met during graduation nights. That was the first time they met, and they were intrigued by each other. And as much as they went their separate ways, they kind of still continued to be in contact, and they maintained a really beautiful friendship throughout the years. And of course, they had stints of like not talking and not being in constant communication. But I feel like I felt so strongly that it was such a beautifully written story because, first of all, their relationship initially, once they met and then they went separate ways, they continued their friendship over long distance. And so they were writing, so she would write letters to him because she liked to write, and he would send postcards because he was traveling. And I think that was such a beautiful way of showing that, like, two people can be really different and just have different outlooks on life and stuff like that, but still they can find a common ground and they can find a way to kind of just like be in each other's lives if they want to. I feel like that was one of the things which was like if they wanted to, they would. And this is both sides. I think many people are tripped up on like, oh yeah, if a man wanted to, he would. But it's like if anybody wanted to, they would. Like nothing is impossible. So that's a theme that I really liked. And then I think another thing that I really liked is how it was progression over time. So it wasn't a thing of like they met, they slept together, they lived together, they're in love, they're now married. Like it wasn't, that's not the way their story was told. Their story was very much like a progression over time. And it took a lot of time and it took a lot of mistakes on both of their parts where it's like at some point she was feeling like being she wasn't being treated the way she should have been treated. Other times, like he would also mention, like he felt like he wasn't being treated the way he was supposed to be treated. And they all went out and they did different relationships with different people, and they all had their separate lives, and they still like cared for each other and were still like together and not together. And I just love the way that story was told. I want to say before I move on from this series specifically, I want to say before you watch it, just be open-minded. I think that's one of the things because it's a different setting, it's a different time, there are different things, different themes. I think it's also very easy to hit one character. And I think for me, what happened is like initially I was like, didn't like this one so much. But then as you progress, then you kind of like get to like all the characters. But also more than liking, I think sometimes we also like we get tripped up because we think we must like, but it's like sometimes it's not about liking, it's about understanding. And I think for me, that's what I felt with this series specifically. So I highly, highly recommend it. Second thing I want to talk about is the book Committed by Elizabeth Gilbert. So a little bit of a history that I know. Elizabeth Gilbert is an author. She's written like fiction books and stuff like that. But the book that most people know from her is Eat, Pray, Love, and it was also made into a film, which I watched. It was so good. I liked watching it. I haven't read the book, but I watched it. So this book, Committed, I actually have the book here with me. This book, Committed, it's called Committed: A Skeptic Makes Peace with Marriage, and this is a follow-up from Eat, Pray, Love. So I feel like this one doesn't get as much like it doesn't get the hype it deserves. I genuinely think that this book is really underrated, and I highly recommend that you read it. And so I guess maybe I'll just read a small intro to the book. At the end of her best-selling memoir, Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert fell in love with Felipe, a Brazilian-born man of Australian citizenship who had been living in Indonesia when they met. Resettling in America, the couple swore eternal fidelity to each other, but they also swore to never, ever, under any circumstances, get married. Both were survivors of previous bad divorces. Enough said. But Providence intervened one day in the form of the US government, which, after detaining Felipe at an American border crossing, gave the couple a choice. They could either get married or Felipe would never be allowed to enter the country again. Having been effectively sentenced to wed, Gilbert decided to tackle her fears of matrimony by becoming a student of the institution. Over the next 10 months, as she and Felipe wandered haphazardly across Southeast Asia, waiting for the US government to permit them to return to America and get married, the only thing she talked about, read about, or thought about was this perplexing subject. Committed tells the story of one woman's efforts through contemplation, historical study, and extensive conversation with every soul she encountered along the way to make peace with marriage before she entered its estate once more. Told with Gilbert's trademark wit, intelligence, and compassion, the book attempts to turn on all the lights when it comes to matrimony, frankly examining questions of compatibility, infatuation, fidelity, family traditions, social expectations, divorce risks, and humbling responsibilities. Myths are debunked, fears are unthreaded, historical perspective is sought, and romantic fantasies are ultimately exchanged for vital emotional compromises. In the end, the book becomes a kind of celebration of love with all the complexity and consequence that real love in the real world will always entail. So that's just like a little bit of a blurb of this book. I really like this book. I read this book in December 2023, and I feel like it was such a beautiful time to read this book. I think I bought it December 3rd, and then I started reading it December 1st, then I skipped December 2nd, then I read it a little bit more December 3rd, then I bought it finally December 3rd, and then I finished it December 16th. So it took me like 2 weeks to read the book, and it's like this is the size of the book. So it's not that big, it's not that small either, and it's also really complex, but I really love this book. I couldn't put it down, so I just had to keep reading and keep reading. And I think one of the things I really liked is, first of all, I think everybody knows I got married last year. I did a ceremony, so I like to say spiritually married, legally engaged. Let me see. I think that certain things came out to me after I got married that I didn't even know. Like things about myself, basically. I think that this whole process it was a learning process for me, and many things came out that I didn't even know were inside me. And in all that struggle and all of that battle, I was trying to find people that understood me, and people that, yeah, just mostly like people that understood me and people that have been on the same journey as me personally. And sometimes it can be hard to find such people because it just feels like everybody is on one track. Like either people are fully against marriage or fully against marriage at a certain age, or people are like congratulating you and being like, oh my god, you're so lucky you have your life together, or even like to the point of feeling like you're being adored for making this action, for like making this step. And I think that it was hard to find an in between. It was so hard for me to find people that I could relate to in terms of like marriage specifically. And so I found that in Elizabeth Gilbert in this book. And I think that this book is one book that I would 100% recommend everybody to read it, regardless of whether you like the idea of marriage or not. I think that it has such wonderful lessons from history, and it's different kinds of history. And it's interesting because I think like so many different people have different perspectives, and so many people think that they know what marriage should be. And I think that at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to make it work. And this book gave me such a wonderful perspective. I like the ending of this blurb that says like at the end of the book, it is a celebration of love and marriage. Actually, it's a celebration of love, not necessarily a celebration of marriage, but understanding that marriage actually does come from love, and it shouldn't be a thing forced upon anyone or even convinced. Like nobody should be convinced to get married. It's like you need to go through that process and figure it out on your own and understand what kind of commitment you're getting into, because it is a commitment that you're getting into, and it is a choice that you have to make on your own without outside noises. And I think that sometimes that can be really hard to get to because there is so many noises. Everybody is obsessed with marriage. It's kind of crazy, but like this book gives a really beautiful perspective of traditional marriages, religious marriages, versus modern marriages, the idea of marriage, like why we think the way we think sometimes. And it was interesting for me to read it and then have a deep dive of like, oh, I understand why I was thinking this, and I understand why I had this picture and why I had this vision. And it's like, I get why some people say this, and I understand why some people think this, and I understand why I'm in the situation I am. And like, it was so eye-opening, and I honestly, I feel like this book saved my life, and I'm so grateful about it. So highly recommend. And the last book I want to talk about is The Girl with the Louding Voice. This I just finished reading, literally like today. I finished it and I was like, need to talk about it because it is wonderful. I've been reading it for a while. I got it from my sister, so she bought it, never read it, and then I said, oh, can I read this book? And then yeah, then I think I started reading it in February, somewhere in the middle, and then I put it down, and then and I am actually I'm so honored that I'm going to get to interview the author of this book in a few weeks. So I'm very excited about that. But I read this book just because like I had it in my room and I was like, let me try. And so I started it and then it became like, oh, I'm interviewing the author, so now I need to read the book. And I'm so glad I pushed through because one of the things that's really complex about this book is the language that's used in it. But then the language is used because of the situation that is. So it's one of those things where it's like you kind of have to push through and it's definitely worth it. I remember when I was in the beginning of reading, I talked to one of my colleagues and they were like, it's 100% worth it. Like keep at it. Of course, the language is really difficult in the beginning, but keep at it. Getting to the end is going to be worth it. And so I felt very inspired by that. I was like, okay, if you're telling me that, then I think there's something to it. And then as I kept reading and I got to, I think like the middle of the book, I was like, yeah, I understand it. So as much as like it was so worth it to push through, some of the themes that come up here are like child abuse, childhood marriages, just like women, like just women being treated badly. I mean, just the importance of women empowerment, to be honest. But it it's really really tough themes that show up in this book. I think that's one thing that I want to mention for sure. Very very tough themes come up, and I think at the end of the day, it's like many books have tough themes, so it's important to just have that skin and just understand that like many books have this, and you just need to push through it. The story is always worth it, and this was such a beautiful story. Like I read it to the end and I feel like I want to read a part two. Like I wish there was a part two of this book because I just feel like I've been left in the air. But it takes you through the story of the character, and her name is Aduni. So I guess I'll read the back of this one because I haven't yet read it. It's so this the book is called The Girl with the Louding Voice. As a third wife in a small Nigerian village, 14-year-old Aduni is expected to fade into silence. But Aduni will not keep quiet. She's smart, funny, and curious, with an infectiously joyful spirit. And despite adversity awaiting her at every turn, she's set on getting an education no matter the cost. Determined not to settle for her fate, Aduni embarks on a journey from her village to the wealthy enclaves of Lagos, a journey that will change her life, and if you listen closely, possibly yours. And I think this book actually has changed my life. Like reading it, I was just like, wow, my life is so changed. I think that more than anything, it showed me the complexity of so many different things. I think that at the end of the day, there are so many things that make up a person. And there are many instances in the book. There's a specific character that you kind of grow to, like you kind of hate because she just seems horrid, honestly. And going through the journey with Aduni, you kind of see why this specific character is the way she is, but also you see what is underneath that horribleness, and you kind of get to like her. So I know, like, I went through that journey of liking her and then just being like, no, of like hating her initially and being like, how can you be so horrid and just like judging, but then also getting to the end and being like, wow, this was a journey, like it was a real journey, you know. And Aduni herself is a wonderful girl, and it's beautiful to see her story and her determination, and it's very inspiring to see how much she wanted. Like she had such big dreams, having not even seen what those big dreams are. Like I think that was the thing. It's like a lot of times we talk about exposure and the importance of it, and it felt like Aduni was not exposed, and yet she decided she needed to be exposed. So she was coming from literally like zero and wanting this dream, and she managed to make it, but she didn't manage to make it. Like it wasn't alone. She had people to help her around, like through, and some people helped her in a nice way. Some people were a curse, but then all of it just led to her getting to where she needed to be. And, you know, they kind of like carried her through and got her to her destination throughout the story. So that was really wonderful. So I highly recommend this book as well. And that is the last book that I am going to talk about in this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below which books you recommend. I wanted to also end with like a short what is on my to be read list. And these, I mean, I have so many books around, so I'm just going to like show them all because I want to read all of them, but then I don't know when I'm going to read them. And then I just recently bought a new set of books, so I'm just going to show you all of those. Okay, so let's start with, I think I'm going to start with the books I've had for the longest, that I've been meaning to read for the longest, and then we'll go from there. So this book, The Lovely Bones, honestly, I bought this book such a long time ago. I don't even know. Like I genuinely, I just need to get it done. So I want to put this. I'm gonna like prioritize them to like books that I'm gonna read soon, and then books that I can kind of like chill with, you know. So this definitely needs to be read soon. I just want to get it done. It's such a nice story. I don't know why I haven't finished it. I have no explanation. I got this as a gift, and I think it's yeah, it's a classic. Yeah, I got it as a gift, so I definitely want to read it. I'm obsessed with like love languages, psychology, things like that. So 5 Love Languages. I also got this. I don't think, did I get this as a gift, or was it just like I was supposed to read this with my husband? It's one of them. I don't remember. Anyway, the 5 Love Languages, definitely want that. This one, I'm not feeling too tied to reading it, to be honest. I'm just kind of like, I might read it, I might not. I think I may have read it before, but I don't know. So there's that one. This book was bought for me as a gift, and I definitely want to read it. It's called The First Woman by Jennifer Makumbi. It's African literature. I definitely want to read this book. I just haven't yet, but I definitely want to do it. So going on my pile. I bought this book at a book fair one time. It's called Amandla. It's born of the First Congo War. It's basically a story told by a boy who lived through the First Congo War, and he's telling the story from his perspective. So I really want to read this. Then to the book that I just recently bought. So some of these books were actually gifts. I had asked I'd asked everybody to give me a gift. If you watched the previous video, then I mentioned it. I had asked for gifts, and specifically I asked for books from someone, from my sister, and so then I went and I bought these. So these first two are those. Those are the gifts that I got. This is 10% Happier that I bought. I definitely want to read this book. I'm a self-help girly. I feel like I really like self-help books, so I definitely want to read this one. I am also a fiction girly, so I got this one as well, Sister of Mine, which is a novel. So I'm very excited to get to read it as well. And then about like 2 days later after I got those books, I was at a bookstore again, and I saw these books and I definitely could not not buy. This one, Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I read the book Gone Girl by the same author, and I really liked that book. It was so good. Oh my gosh, maybe I should actually do a video talking about Gone Girl, but I read that book and it's like messed my brain up so much. So I saw this and I was like, definitely want to read because she's a great author. And then the next one is The Light Between Oceans, which I just felt was a very sweet story when I read it. Sweet, but not like, I don't know, it doesn't sound like it's a happy ending, but it just felt sweet and I just wanted to try it. So I just got it. The Light Between Oceans. That's this one. So that's all the books that are on my to be read list. We'll see how this year is going to go. Definitely other books that are on my to be read list are like book of the month for my job, which is Viola Davis, Finding Me. I want to read that book actually, and I try to read like all the books of the month just because like why not? So I think that's the one that I'm going to start on next. Now that I finish this other one, but I'm going to prep for the author conversation happening at the end of the month, and then we'll get to the next book. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, please make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.